What's going on, guys? Apathettic here with all your tips, recommendations, and everything in between to make sure you are set up for success in the Crucible. And today we're going to be covering the best Warlock build for competitive in Shadowkeep. Let's get into it. Now, this is an update to a previous video I made a little while ago when Bottom Tree Dawnblade was crazy good. Still a pretty relevant video, but I don't think Bottom Tree is nearly as good as it was. So we are going to go over what I consider to be the best build now for playing competitive with your Warlock. And we are covering everything, guys, from the Rift type to armor breakdown. So some of this may seem more basic, but trust me, we will get into the meat of things shortly. Starting with our Rift, my recommendation is to use the Healing Rift. The ability to stay alive is just too valuable, and especially now since comp is survival, it has made staying alive more important than ever. Moving on to our jump. Here, I recommend using Burst Glide, as this jump allows us to get around the map as quickly as possible and keep our movement as horizontal as possible, which helps alleviate one of the Warlock's biggest pain points, which can be how floaty the jump is. It's also the jump that allows us to Warlock skate as quickly and efficiently as possible, which is also important for using our super. Moving on to the grenade we are choosing, I'm actually going to be choosing 2 grenades, and the one I choose is going to depend on the makeup of the team I'm playing. What I mean by this is, if I'm playing a team of primarily Warlocks and Titans, then I'm going to be using my Arc Bolt grenade, and I'm playing a team that's dominated by Hunters, then I'll be using a Storm or Pulse grenade. The reason I make this distinction is because of the fact that Hunters can avoid getting tags by an Arc Bolt grenade by dodging, and if I'm playing a team that's primarily Hunters, I'm going to have a hard time tagging them with my grenade, which is why I would use the Pulse or Storm grenade instead. So this will allow me to make sure I'm having the highest chance possible of tagging enemies together and chaining that lightning, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Getting into our subclass of choice, and my recommendation is the best Warlock subclass for competitive, and I kind of gave it away earlier, is Top Tree Stormcaller, and we're going to briefly cover the benefits of the subclass, starting with Transcendence. When cast with a full grenade and melee charge, Storm Trance lasts longer and fully restores health, and this is a benefit of the subclass that I don't intentionally use very often. And the reason is because I'm not going to wait till I have these abilities charged to pop my super. I'm going to pop it when the situation calls for it, whether I have these abilities up or not. So this perk is nice to have, but inside of PvP and specifically competitive, I don't really notice its impact. Next, we got Ionic Blink, which is an amazing ability in Storm Trance that allows us to teleport and super to create space between us and our other opponents, or help us close the gap and limit the amount of damage we are taking. So definitely a highlight of this particular subclass that increases survivability. Next, we got the featured perk of this subclass, and that's Arc Web. And that's when enemies that get damaged by your grenade chain lightning to enemies around them. And this is really the big reason I lean toward this subclass. This ability has great utility in competitive because it can single-handedly take down a whole team. It's also great for breaking up a team that prefers to move together, which is huge. In competitive, sometimes you will encounter teams that are constantly on each other's D, and once you tag them once with Arc Web, they won't be together the rest of the match, which is good because if this team is used to running like that, then we'll automatically take them out of their comfort zone. Lastly, we have Chain Lightning, which is a melee ability that hits at extended ranges and chains lightning to nearby enemies, and I really like this perk, and I feel it's somewhat underrated. The reason is because if you push into close to close the gap on an enemy and suddenly you find there's 2 enemies, you may be able to shotgun melee one, then that damage will chain to the other enemy as well and do some decent damage and allow you an easy 2-piece or make the enemy a little bit weaker to get cleaned up easier by one of your teammates. I found this actually happens a lot on fights for heavy. I'll push in to keep someone off of heavy. Turns out there's another guy there, and maybe I kill one of them because of the chain lightning damage. I may die, but my teammate easily cleans up the other enemy that's already been weakened from my melee chaining to that other enemy. And it's little things like this during a game that can lead to victory. Now that we've discussed the subclass and the benefits, let's talk about armor. Now, we know the main feature of this build is the grenade. We want to have the ability to tag our enemies with our grenade and do that chain damage as much as possible. And secondly, we want to make sure we are impacting something that allows us to stay engaged in the action as much as possible. With all that being said, we want to be investing and looking for armor that is spec'd heavily in discipline and recovery. Now you may be thinking, Appa, what about resilience or intellect? Yes, okay, calm down. Yes, those stats still matter. But for me, as much as I love the super on this subclass, I'm more focused on investing in the neutral game. Supers will come and go, but at the end of the day, your neutral game is always on, which means it's going to have a bigger impact on the game at hand. So if anything, I would be looking for armor with a focus on recovery and discipline. And if it also has high resilience or mobility, then that's just the icing on the cake. And strength isn't even worth discussing at this point. So best place to farm for these higher stat armor is Iron Banner in the raid ? Sorry guys, I don't PvE very often. But as you are grinding, make sure you don't forget to use your discipline or recovery mods to close the gaps, as the closer we can get to tier 10 for discipline and recovery, the better. Also, a side benefit of Iron Banner is you can get a lot of enhanced mods, which can further strengthen this build. Now, as for the exotic I recommend for this subclass, I recommend Transversive Steps all day, every day, and anyone who's watched me shouldn't be surprised by this. It gives a great boost to mobility, and auto reloads are equipped weapon, and we talk about being and doing everything we can to stay in the action. This exotic embodies that. Now, a close second is Apathettic aspects, but because of the weapons I use and the perks I look for, I don't find the benefits that great. Moving on to the weapons that I recommend for this build, and it depends on the player you are. If I'm a shotgun player, you need a shotty with quick draw, and typically Retold Tail or Mindbenders comes to mind, but quick draw is a crazy good perk that literally makes a difference in your engagements. And for my new light players, quick draw essentially allows you to just flip to your shotgun super quickly, and it's ready almost immediately for you to shoot. And for my shotgun users, talking about your primary, I typically recommend using Spare Rations because of its amazing aim assist, or Thorn because of its burn ability to keep enemies out of the fight. And for my sniper users, I recommend the exact same primaries, so Spare Rations or Thorn, or the last word if you really want to be annoying, and pair that with a Beloved or Twilight Oath, whatever one you have that has Snapshot, or if you have one that has Snapshot Quick Draw, that's even better. Having these quick draw / snapshot perks on your shotguns and snipers makes all the difference, guys. When I didn't have a quick draw Mindbenders, I would literally lose fights because someone could pull their weapon out faster than me. And for sniping, it's the same with snapshot, influencing your ability to quickscope. These perks are borderline required for high level comp play. As I mentioned earlier, if you have these perks now, you don't need Apathettic aspects. Apathettic aspects basically give you those quick draw type perks, but if you already have those on your weapons now, instead of wasting the exotic slot on Apathettic aspects, that allows us to use our Transversive Steps but still have a lot of the same benefits. As for heavy weapons, like I said guys, I don't really use heavy, but if I did, machine guns like Hammerhead are still king, or maybe something like Truth. And that is going to wrap it up guys for our best competitive build for Warlock video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you give this build a try and let me know what you guys think, or if you have other builds that you prefer to run in comp, and let me know why you prefer those builds. But again, thank you for watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, as it's a free way to support me, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.
10 seconds. No life left for anyone. Rest when you're dead. Tiebreaker active. The end is coming. Fight! One foe remains. You're knocked out. You obliterated the enemy. You have them where you want them. Finish this. Lives left. what you have. Got 30 seconds. No lives left on either side. On the edge of my seat. 10 seconds. One opponent standing. Tiebreaker active. You have one last shot at survival. This is it. Show me what you've got. The enemy's down. All lives expended. Total victory. The weight of the world was on your shoulders, and still